Very happy to welcome you all to AIOC 2021. Good to have each and every speaker here. We are just 3 minutes away from our live. So we'll be beginning exactly at 8:30. But before that, I'm very good to say this. We are good on time and we will be starting it on time so we can hand it over the session to the next speakers and judges on time. So with that, each paper presentation will get 6 minutes for their presentation and 2 minutes for their discussion. So I would request all the speakers to please keep their presentation in time. That will help us to be on time and pass on the session to the next speaker on time. Great. Let's begin. To start with, I would request to. All right, thank you so much. With this, to start with, we have Dr. Shruti Kochar, Dr. Neelam Pushkar, Dr. Sheetal Mahavarkar, Dr. Milind Naik, Dr. Manoranjan Das, and I would request them to please chair the session and they'll be judges for today's paper presentation. I would request Dr. Shruti to please take it forward from here.
A very good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, Dr. Shruti, a very good morning. Please go
Good
ahead.
morning. Yes. So a very warm welcome to all of you. So let us proceed with the session of poster podium presentation in trauma. And I welcome you all. And do we start or we have 5 more minutes?
Yeah, we have a time. We have 1.5 minutes. You can, if you want to instruct something, you can go ahead. If you want to introduce co-judges, if you want to greet them, please go ahead.
So the session does not have any semi-final round. This is the final one. The time is 4 minutes for each presenter, and the scoring will be finalized within 10 minutes. And I would like to welcome our chairman and judges, Dr. Neelam Pushkar, Dr. Sheetal, Dr. Milind sir, Dr. Manoranjan Das. Hello, everybody.
Dr. Neelam, you're trying to say something? Your mic is on mute.
Good morning, everyone. The duration of presentation is 4 minutes or 6 minutes?
It's going to be 6.
Minutes.
I'm so sorry to Bajit. It's going to be 6 minutes.
4
minutes.
minutes.
2 minutes for the discussion, 4 minutes for the presentation.
4 minutes for the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, Dr. Partha here. So have a great day. Good morning to all our judges as well as to our participants, and of course to the hall manager as well as the coordinator and the timekeeper. So we have 4 minutes of presentation, 2 minutes of discussion, and judges request you to mark your mark sheet and send it to the assigned number by 10 to 15 minutes after the over of the session.
Yes, sir.
So,
thank you so much.
Welcome Dr. Shruti, Dr. Neelam Pushkar, Dr. Manoranjan Das, Dr. Sheetal Mahavarkar, and Dr. Milind Naik. Great. Have a great day. A good morning to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A
Thank
very
you.
good morning, Dr. Partha.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, over to Dr. Shruti. Please take it forward from here. Dr. Shruti, you're on mute. I would request you to please unmute yourself first.
Hello. Yes.
Yes. You're audible now.
So do we have the first presenter ready? Dr. Madhvi Bijlani. I request her to be ready with her presentation on affecting visual prognosis of open globe injuries and correlation with ocular trauma score. Is the presenter ready?
I don't see Dr. Madhavi here in the session right now. All right, Dr. Madhavi, are you there? If you're there from some other account, your name is not there, if just raise your hand or unmute yourself and start your presentation. All right, with that, I think so Dr. Madhavi isn't there, so we can move ahead with our next speaker.
Do we have any other co-authors who will be presenting the?
Yeah, good morning. I am Dr. Manoranjan Das from Madurai Aravind Eye Hospital. So I think we just according to the name, we'll go ahead with the presenters. So it is nice to be seeing you all. Thank you for giving this opportunity to become this judge in over here. So we are eager to listen to all of you. Please go ahead, all the participants. Best of luck.
Thank you so much, Dr. Das. We have Dr. Urvashi, who is the next speaker. So I would request Dr. Urvashi to please unmute herself, start the camera, and start with her presentation as well.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Dr. Urvashi. If you wish, you can start your camera as well. We are not able to see you. Yeah, we can see you now.
All the best, Dr. Urvashi. Let's
Thank you.
begin with the presentation. The time duration is 4 minutes.
So my topic, so I'll be presenting a case report on traumatic phacocyl in a case of occult scleral rupture. Hello?
Yes, Dr. Urvashi, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Okay. So my case report is on traumatic phacocyl in a case of occult scleral rupture. So phacocyl is defined as dislocation of crystalline lens into subconjunctival space because of the scleral defect following blunt trauma. Usually the phacocyl occurs because of the indirect rupture of the sclera following blunt trauma. The patient who presented to us was a 65-year-old female with blunt trauma to her left eye with a tennis ball. The patient complained of sudden gush of warm fluid from the eye. The patient had no vision in that eye for past 30 years, the details of which were not known. No history of any ocular surgery in left eye. History of undergoing cataract surgery in the right eye 30 years back. So on examination, there was ecchymosis of upper and lower lid of the left eye. There was 360-degree conjunctival chemosis and a localized hematoma-like swelling was noted in the superotemporal quadrant. The cornea had leukomatous opacities and calcific deposits suggestive of some old corneal insult to the eye. And because of this, the anterior chamber, there was no view of anterior chamber, iris, pupil, and the fundus. Vision was no perception of light. The eyeball was soft, and on slight pressure over the globe, there was leak noted from the temporal aspect of the swelling. Though a obvious scleral defect or uveal prolapse was not visualized. Based on the clinical findings, diagnosis of occult scleral rupture was made. Anterior segment of right eye was within normal limits with 618 vision. On CT scan, there was vitreous hemorrhage in the left eye and lens position was not commented upon. So the patient was taken for exploration under peribulbar anesthesia. Peritomy was done from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock position. So cataractous lens was noted in the subconjunctival space, which was then removed. A scleral tear was noted with ragged margins from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock position with uveal tissue prolapse. The uveal tissue was abscissed when the scleral tear was sutured with H0-ethylone. Post-operatively, the patient received IV antibiotics and steroids and topical antibiotics and steroids. Over a period of days, the chemosis subsided and the patient was prognosticated regarding the nil vision. Coming to discussion part, phacocyl usually develops because of the indirect rupture of the sclera because of the blunt trauma. It is very rare and unusual condition in cases of blunt trauma, accounting for 13% of all lens luxations. So it was the prominent site is usually the superonasal quadrant, and mainly it frequently occurs between the limbus and the spiral of Tillers. Elderly individuals are more predisposed for developing phacocyl than in children because of the increased scleral rigidity and because of the hard nucleus. The predisposing factors also include previous surgical or traumatic scleral scar, recurrent episodes of scleritis, connective tissue disorders, and myopia. Post-coniotomy or inadvertent administration of peribulbar local anesthesia have also been recorded. Visual outcomes are variable. So coming to conclusion, phacocyl or subconjunctival dislocation of crystalline lens is rare consequence of blunt trauma, which should be considered in a case of subconjunctival swelling with suspected occult scleral rupture if present, if lens is not noted in its natural position. Management usually includes removal of the lens, Then repair suturing of the scleral defect with subsequent IL implantation depending upon the status of the eye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Urvashi. I would request our judges to please go for a question and answer round.
Hello, Dr. Sheetal. Welcome to the session. Would you like to ask
I
some
actually,
questions?
because of some problems, I connected a
Okay.
little later, so I missed her case. Is there any other judge who has listened to her case?
Dr. Urvashi, what was the final status of this patient, the ocular status?
The patient had no PL in that eye since 30 years. So we just, our primary aim was to maintain the integrity of the globe. So primary repair was done and there was no visual prognosis for that patient.
You said that supronasal is the commonest, location of these kind of presentations. So any specific reason for that?
Yeah, because most of the blunt traumas occurs from the temporal aspect, and because of the projection of the waves, most commonly it is noted in the supernasal quadrant.
So what was the predisposing risk factor in this particular patient?
This patient was mostly it occurs in elderly because of the rigid sclera and the hard nucleus of the lens. So we consider that as the risk factor in this case.
Okay, that was a great presentation.
Dr. Urvashi,
I would just like to ask one thing. Could you like kind of achieve your goal, what you wanted to kind of, maintain the integrity? So how long was the follow-up for your case?
The patient actually followed up for initially 1 month, and patient was doing fine, but later because of lockdown, the patient lost to follow up.
Okay, so at the end of 1 month, he was maintaining his integrity. There was not signs of any prethesis.
No.
And what are the risk factors of sympathetic ophthalmitis in such cases? Patient already had no PLI since long. Reason is not known. So what do you think? Why was not the eye removed in such case?
There must be some previous corneal ulcer or something, because there were leukomatous opacities and calcific deposits on the cornea. So we consider it as like a previous corneal insult to the eye. And since patient was not affording, the patient did not opt for to go to a higher center for the treatment of it.
Nice presentation, Dr. Urvashi. Do we have any more questions for her? Dr. Urvashi is a non-ratified member, so we don't have to score her. So do we have any more questions for Dr. Urvashi? Dr. Neelam?
No, fine. She's fine.
Okay. Should we proceed with the next presenter? Can we have Dr. Tanmay Srivastava with presentation on unusual case of anterior dislocation of fractured PCL following cow horn injury?
Dr. Tanmay, may I request you to
Good
please
morning,
start
everyone.
sharing your screen? Yeah, thank you so much.
Shall I start?
Yes, please go ahead. Your timer is started.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone. I'm going to present an unusual case of anterior dislocation of lens. And blunt ocular trauma to the post-cataract surgery eyes can cause artificial lens dislodgement in subconjunctival space, suprachoroidal space, which is and can even lead to expulsion of implant from the eyeball. Pseudophakic is defined as a displacement of the artificial lens, which is implanted cataract surgery in subconjunctival space. The term pseudophakic was coined by Biedner in 1977. This condition needs differentiation from phacoceal, which is defined as a traumatic displacement of normal crystalline lens in subconjunctival space. this condition is one of the emergency condition in ophthalmic science predisposing to development of endophthalmitis. Since the condition is very rare, sufficient data on the visual status and outcomes in such subjects is very limited. However, early and timely intervention may improve visual outcomes in such patients. We are documenting an unusual case of fractured intraocular lens dislocation in subconjugal space due to blunt trauma. Farmer presented with chief complaints of diminution of vision, pain, and redness by following blunt trauma by cow horn 15 days back. He consulted a local practitioner who gave him some topical medications. His pain and redness got relief, but diminution of vision persisted, for which he was referred at an advanced center. His old records revealed a complete hyphema on first day after injury, which resolved with above medications. He gave the history of extracapsular cataract surgery with posterior chamber PMMA lens implantation in a government hospital 5 years back. On ocular examination, his visual status was hand movement near face and perception of light and accurate projection of rays in all the 4 coordinates in right eye, and the left eye was normal. Conjunctiva appeared to be congested mildly in affected eye. PCI was seen in the anterior chamber along with a broken haptic, which had migrated into the subconjunctival space in the perilimbal area supratemporally. The cornea was apparently clear with normal sheen. Pupil was U-shaped due to absence of iris in the superior quadrant. Vitreous stones were present in the anterior chamber. Intraocular pressure in traumatized eye was 6 millimeter mercury, and in other eye was 16. Anterior and posterior chamber evaluation in non-traumatized eye showed unremarkable findings. Fundus examination in the affected eye showed a hazy media on distant direct ophthalmoscopy, and direct ophthalmoscopy via aphakic part showed a normal disc findings and scarring at macula. Slit lamp fundus examination with 78D revealed mild vitritis. Indirect ophthalmoscopy showed normal peripheral fundus. B-scan ultrasound was done of the affected eye, which reported mildly increased frequency suggestive of vitreous inflammation. Subsequently, patient underwent conjunctival peritomy with removal of haptic and PCIOL. Vitrectomy was done anteriorly and sclera was sutured with absorbable Weichel sutures. Anatomical integrity of eyeball was restored by formation of chamber. Vision got improved to finger counting at 3 meters. Vitreous was not incarcerated in the wound. After 6 weeks, patient underwent scleral fixation along with vitrectomy through pars plana route in the second setting. Patient's visual condition came up to 636 in right eye after 6 months of follow-up. Intraocular pressure was 12 millimeter of mercury at previous visit, and fundus revealed mild disc pallor with vertical CD ratio of 0.3 and macular scarring. Blunt trauma rarely causes subconjunctival displacement of IOL in post-cataract surgery patients. Identification of dislocated IOL can be done by slit lamp fundoscopy, ultrasonography, or ultrasound biomicroscopy. Though USG B scan and UBM are contraindicated in open globe injuries as they carry the risk of intraocular infection and bulging outwards of the ocular contents. Extensive subconjunctival bleed with or without uveal tissue covering displaced IOL and hyphema challenges the diagnosis in slit lamp examination. This makes ultrasound useful tool in diagnosis of displaced IOL. The cause encountered most frequently of pseudophacoceal is blunt trauma. Though self-sealing sclerocorneal tunnel is stronger than sutured limbal wound, as shown in various studies, in cases of patients who have used steroids for longer duration post-operatively or in poor wound construction, self-sealing tunnel remains weak. Large wounds with premature entry or deep tunnel, if left unsutured, poses the risk of defective healing even after long time after surgery following manual SICS. Hence, in these cases, sutures should be placed so that such potential vision threatening conditions can be stopped from occurrence. The management of this condition depends on various factors such as time of reporting, visual acuity, presence of inflammation or infection, iris status, posterior capsule status, status of vitreous status, and retinal detachment. Several studies propose good visual prognosis after aphakic correction, IOL implantation after vitrectomy or primary repair. It is mandatory to extract the IOL which has been displaced and repair sclera so that endophthalmitis can be prevented. Broken IOL and its haptic, if left subconjunctively, may lead to erosion of sclera, perforation of globe. Narang et al. Published good visual recovery in 3 out of 5 cases in a study in which they performed vitrectomy. To conclude, blunt ocular trauma should be treated as an ocular emergency in order to prevent dreadful complications like endophthalmitis. And take-home messages: each and every ocular trauma should be reported at an earliest for better visual outcomes. Population masses should be advised. Adequate safety measures in order to prevent injury to the eyeball. Thank you.
So what was your final diagnosis?
Ma'am, it was a fractured IOL with a haptic in subconjunctival space and IOL in the anterior chamber.
And what about the vitritis? Was there endophthalmitis associated, or it was just
No, ma'am.
because
There
of
was
trauma?
mild vitritis.
And how frequent it is to find such a presentation in trauma
Yes, ma'am.
cases?
Ma'am, it is a rare phenomena, and incidence is very less, I would say.
Okay.
One question from my side.
Yes, sir.
You said that it was a blunt injury, right?
Pardon, sir? It was a?
No, you said that it was a blunt injury.
Yes, sir.
So in a blunt injury, when you don't have any UVL incarceration, when the glove is almost intact, might be soft. So why didn't you go for a ultrasound?
So we did an ultrasound.
But you quoted in their take homes that ultrasound is contraindicated.
Sir,
in the open
yes, sir.
glove.
The ultrasound is contraindicated in these cases because they carry the risk of infection. But we did the ultrasound in this case, in which we saw mild vitritis.
So there was no vitreous hemorrhage.
There wasn't any
There was
vitreous
no
hemorrhage. There was only vitreous cells present.
Okay. And second question is that you said that after removing the broken lens and the haptic,
Yes, sir.
so you had gone for a vitrectomy and secondary IOL.
Yes, sir.
So on what basis you thought that secondary IOL at this acute stage will be good? Why can't you do it in a stepwise manner? You could have done a pupilloplasty also in that irregular, wide, broad rail track pupil.
So the patient presented with a U-shaped pupil. The iris was already in the supranasal quadrant. It was already incarcerated. So we had to remove it at the first sitting. When we removed it, the haptic, the broken haptic and the IOL. And after waiting for 6 weeks, since the inflammation was much, so we waited for 6 weeks for the second sitting for the implantation of secondary IOL.
Okay. I think for better this thing, no, you could have gone for a pupilloplasty. That could have been much better.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Along with the secondary IOL whenever you have done.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Otherwise, the presentation is nice, right? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Very nice
Right.
presentation. Only one thing I wanted to ask you is, I think the ultrasound is something not contraindicated per se. It depends on each and every case. Like in your case also, you could have done ultrasound.
Ma'am, I have done it, which showed mild vitritis. And ma'am,
I am not able to hear you.
so the contents can come out easily. And hello.
Please go ahead.
So the contents can come out easily, and in fact, the gel which is being used in ultrasound that can cause that can penetrate inside the eye, which can cause infection, secondary infections. That's why I said that it is relatively contraindicated. It's not
Yeah,
contraindicated.
it depends on the case. Nice case, Tanmay.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. With that, I would request Dr. Shruti to please invite our next speaker.
Now I invite Dr. Jofi Phillips with the presentation on profile of occupation-related ocular trauma, an observational study in a quaternary care institution. Do we have the chief author here?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you
you're
are.
audible, doctor. May I request
Please
you
go
to please
ahead.
start sharing your screen?
Good morning. I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. Profile of occupation-related ocular trauma and observational study in a quaternary care institution. I have no financial disclosures. Ocular trauma is one of the most common causes of ophthalmic morbidity and monoocular blindness. The World Health Organization has estimated that globally 55 million eye injuries occur yearly, with restriction of activities in a day. And this includes 750,000 patients requiring hospitalization. And this also includes 200,000 open globe injuries. Approximately, there are 1.6 million blind people from injuries and 2.3 million people with bilateral low vision due to ocular trauma, and 19 million people with unilateral blindness or low vision. The cumulative lifetime prevalence of ocular trauma is 20%, which means that there's 1 in 5 persons will have a likelihood of sustaining ocular trauma at some point in their life. Due to paucity of studies with regard to occupational eye injuries, we proposed a study to look at the prevalence and incidence of eye injuries, which can decrease visual impairment and blindness. The aim of the study was to study the demographic, socioeconomic, and clinical profile of patients presenting with occupation-related ocular trauma. Methodology, ours was a prospective observational study, and the inclusion criteria consisted of patients presenting within 1 month of injury at their workplace and above 18 years of age. Staff and students were excluded from the study. The clinical research pro forma consisted of a detailed ocular examination, including dilated fundus examination. Visual acuity as presentation was determined. Classification of injury was done. The demography, socioeconomic status was taken into consideration. Men were affected more than women. With regard to age distribution, 31 to 40 years of age group were more affected with ocular injuries. 90% of patients presented during the time span of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and 74% of patients were found to have education at or below the middle school level. All open globe injuries and 96% of closed globe injuries were from the lower socioeconomic status. The 25 people received first aid, and 30% of patients directly presented to the emergency department for receiving first aid. 12 persons had previously undergone sustained eye injuries, and 1% had eye injuries on more than 4 occasions. Out of a total of 88 patients, 11 patients or 12.5% patients presented with open globe injuries. Distribution of occupation, we had farmers, 24 farmers in this study. This was followed by welders, 12 people. Metallic foreign body was the most common cause of eye injury in the industrial sector. This was followed by welders and people grinding stone or metal. Causes of eye injuries in the agricultural sector could be attributed to vegetative matter in the agricultural sector. This was followed by foreign body due to dust, ashes, or cement dust. We had 11 open globe injuries with 4 patients with intraocular foreign bodies. At 1 month post presentation, the causes of low vision were noted to be due to vitreous hemorrhage, retinal detachment, corneal scarring, and aphakia. In discussion, I would like to state that farmers were affected more than the industrial workers, and most patients presented with lower socioeconomic status, and the education was less than middle school or lesser. The most common object of insult was the metallic foreign body, as was seen by Serin et al.'s study. And among the non-industrial sector, it was by vegetative matter. This was also reported by Rose J. et al. In South India. Closed globe injuries are more common than open globe injuries. In conclusion, I would like to state that occupation-related eye injuries are a preventable cause of ocular trauma, and they happen mostly in the productive years of age group, 30 to 40 years. Enhancing education and training is of prime importance. Public health awareness initiatives should be done at the earliest for reducing the prevalence of visual impairment and preventable causes of blindness. Thank you.
Dr. Phillips, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's very good community work, I guess, you've done. So just tell me one thing, that how do you propose to avoid or train the farmers? Because, it is easier to train industrial people. It is easier to train the school children and the school teachers. But how do you propose to do that for farmers?
Ma'am, it is a challenge, but that has to be taken into account, as in when we see patients in the emergency department, we can also offer counseling.
That is only for the patient
Counseling.
who has already
Yes.
already had trauma, right?
Yes, as part of community health, we can also conduct awareness camps and give safety devices to industrial workers.
That's what I said. Industry school,
Yeah.
it's easier, but farmers, when we do such a study, there has to be, like in the way you said it in conclusion, there has to be some kind of a remedy also for that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was a good one. That's a good community study. And what was the reason for school-going children? The commonest thing?
No, I meant that the commonest
Way of injury.
was within the lower socioeconomic group and lower income group, and people who had education at or below middle school level.
What was the cause for it? The most common cause which you found out amongst school children?
Ma'am, it's not school children. I was stating that according to the Kupusami scale, most patients who presented with ocular trauma at their workplaces had education
Got it.
at or below middle school level.
Okay.
So we had a
Dr. Philip Milind here.
Yes, sir.
Did you exclude fractures in this? So you are only focusing on eye injuries, is it?
We focused on all types of ocular injuries at the workplace within 1 month of presentation. We included closed group and open globe injuries. Unfortunately, the limitation of the study was that it could not reflect the entire spectrum of ocular trauma.
Okay.
But we have included all injuries.
Great. It just didn't show a fracture by chance, you mean?
Yes, we had one case, sir.
All right, with that, I would request Dr. Shurjit, please invite our next speaker.
Okay. A small suggestion, please mention your financial disclosures and please stick to time because we are running behind. I welcome the next speaker, Dr. Ankita Mahapatra, with her presentation on mobile blast. I'm not sure. Yeah, mobile blast of mobile battery in living eye.
Dr. Ankita, are you there? If you're there, I would request you to please unmute yourself and start sharing your screen. I don't see Dr. Ankita here in the list, so we can move.
Do we have any co-author to present the case? I don't think so. Yes. So moving on to the next presentation by Dr. Rahul Kumar Bafna. Do we have Dr. Rahul here? Dr. Rahul?
Dr. Ankita is back, I guess, so we can go with Dr. Ankita. She's there.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Dr. Ankita. It's your turn. I request you to please start sharing your screen. Your time has already started.
Yeah. So, good morning, a very good morning to delegates. This is Dr. Ankita Mahapatra. I am going to present on the topic Bombile blast of mobile battery in living eye. Coming to introduction, the mobile blast injuries are increasing in recent times. This increase in incidence is attributed mostly to the usage of cheap, low quality phones and battery, as well as the use of mobile phone while charging. Mobile phone suddenly exploding in the hand and after receiving a call. Hello?
Dr. Ankita, please go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah. Mobile phone suddenly exploding in the hand and after receiving a call is causing disastrous consequences on the patient, family member, and society, physically, economically, and psychologically. Battery can explode when they are charged too much or too fast, shoddy manufacturing of devices, overheating, etc. Mobile battery blast is a highly underestimated etiology for severe ocular morbidity. So here I mentioned two cases which presented to us last year. First case is a 29-year-old male who sustained injury to both the eyes due to mobile phone battery blast while using the device being charged. The patient, this is the right eye and this is the left eye. So on presenting, the right eye had a hand movement positive with inaccurate projection of rays, and the left eye was perception of light positive with inaccurate projection of rays. And there was charring and few warning injuries of lid and adnexa. In the right eye, it was an open globe injury with limbal laceration from 3 to 5 o'clock with uveal tissue prolapse, and in the left eye, it was a central horizontal corneal tear involving both limbus with uveal tissue prolapse, as we can see here. So we did CT scan and ultrasound to rule out any intraocular foreign body, and we saw foreign bodies in the anterior chamber. So we went ahead with meticulous corneal injury repair with exploration and took out the foreign bodies. Then we took care of the uveal tissue prolapse under general anesthesia. Postoperatively, optimal steroid antibiotic cycloplegic administration was done. After 1 week of surgery, the patient had right eye hand movement positive and left eye perception of light positive with inaccurate projection of rays, and the patient was referred to vitreoretinal department. The second case was a 7-year-old male child presented with pain, burning sensation, and watering from both eyes following a smartphone battery blast. He was playing games when the mobile was in charge. As we can see, this is the boy with right arm fracture, and also he has some abrasion wounds on the abdomen and the left arm. And this is the eye status. On presentation, he had right eye 20/40 and left eye 20/60. Intraocular pressure was 15 and 16 millimeter of mercury respectively. Multiple charring spots on skin, few foreign bodies in the tear film and conjunctiva with no limbal ischemia was seen. So we went ahead with the topical anesthetic agent to alleviate the symptoms and patient cooperation. The eyes were washed with copious ringer lactate. pH of ocular surface normalized and debris removed. The fluorescent stain showed multiple superficial corneal epithelial defects with right more than the left, and the slit lamp biomicroscopy was normal. The double eversion of lids done to look for any chemical residue or foreign body, and it was not there. Intraocular pressure and posterior segment examination was normal. So as a treatment, we gave topical preservative-free lubricant and broad-spectrum antibiotic with topical cycloplegic. On 1 week follow-up, the patient was doing fine. The mechanism of injury from battery blast could be a combination of mechanical, that is the battery pieces flying into the eye, a thermal or chemical injuries. The present data on ocular injury by mobile blast is insufficient. Few case reports published from India had presented good outcome and timely and proper management of cases. So I found 3 studies. One is Narang et al., who showed a grade 1 ocular surface burn with multiple soot particles over cornea and conjunctiva. Ori et al., who showed 1 case of diffuse epithelial keratitis, and Kumar et al., it was a case series from India reporting severe ocular morbidity due to globe rupture with resultant vision or perception of light. Only one of the 4 eyes could attain the visual acuity of counting figure at 4 feet in the series. So for my conclusion, mobile blast injury is emerging as a new mode of ocular injury and can cause fatal blinding complications. As we know, prevention is better than cure. So adopting safer practices of using and charging cell phone according to the manufacturer, avoidance of overcharging and overheating, and public awareness about the downside of using counterfeit and cheap products should be there. These are my references, and thank you.
That was a nice presentation, Dr. Ankita.
Thank you,
which
ma'am.
type of chemical injury do you expect in such patients where you get, mobile blast?
Ma'am, mainly lithium.
Consequence?
Ma'am, lithium ion battery is mostly used in phones, so I will expect that.
Okay. So what about the, otherwise how you take care of the chemical part of it, just the injury which happens because of the chemical thing which is there in the eye?
We did not get any chemical injury patient, but in case of chemical injury, we have to see whether it is an acid or alkali, and based on that, we have to go ahead with the treatment.
So these patients are basically, it's a combination of mechanical and chemical injury,
Yes,
so it's
thermal.
a combined kind of thing patients have. So we have to take care of each and every aspect of the injury.
Yes, ma'am.
In your case, what was the nature of foreign body that you saw? What was it exactly?
Ma'am, in the second case, we were able to see some metallic sheen. and we took it out from the tear film and conjunctiva, but I'm not sure about the type of the foreign body.
Okay.
Very nice case, Ankita. I have two questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Your second case was pretty clear-cut case, not much of a damage. But your first case, how long was the follow-up?
Ma'am, actually, we did a 1 week for after 1 week, the patient came to us, and we actually on the B scan, we found retinal detachment and vitreous hemorrhage and all. That's why we referred it to a vitreoretinal department for further.
What about the anterior
management.
segment in that case at 1 week?
Ma'am, the sutures were intact and it was not leaking.
There was no limbal ischemia, nothing like that.
No, ma'am. No limbal ischemia in that case.
And epithelium was recovered?
Yeah, ma'am. It was in recovery. We administered some normal topical antibiotic and
After
lubricant.
1 week, you did not see that case?
Yes, ma'am. We saw, and there were still there were dry eye and there was some patches of epithelial recovery, some infiltration.
Did his retina get settled?
Ma'am, I have not followed up.
So after it went to the retina department, you have no idea what happened to that case?
No,
okay,
ma'am.
the second question what I want to ask you is, in your literature study, did you find any such cases with good quality mobiles, or these are all with the
Ma'am, all China made quality actually, MI or Micromax or that kind of phones, like cheap phones.
Okay, thank you, Ankit.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we move on to the next presentation? Do we have the next presenter ready? Dr. Rahul Kumar Bafna. Thank you, Dr. Ankita. That was a nice presentation.
Dr. Bafna isn't here. He is busy with some emergency, so he won't be able to join us. So we can
move on to Dr. Divya Motwani. Do we have Dr. Divya Motwani with her case on traumatic myopia?
Dr. Divya Motwani. Well, I don't see Dr. Divya also here. We can move ahead with the next one.
Dr. Faisal, do we have Dr. Faisal?
Yes, Dr. Faisal is here.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Welcome, Dr. Faisal. Let's begin with your presentation. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
The time limit is 4 minutes. Please stick to the time.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. My name is Dr. Faisal Qayyum Shah, and the title of my paper is Computed Tomography in Preoperative Assessment of the Ocular Trauma. There are no financial disclosures. Seems that I cannot move slide. Okay. So ocular trauma is a diagnostic challenge to ophthalmologists and radiologists alike, particularly in settings like multi-organ injury, while the open globe diagnosis of open globe injury is in dilemma, or there is a history involving projectile foreign body. The aims of the primary aim of the study was to determine the accuracy of CT in differentiating open globe from closed globe injury, and the secondary aims were to find the statistical significance of different CT findings to detect the open globe injury and to determine the accuracy of CT to further characterize the open globe injury. It is a prospective observational case series carried over 1 year. 636 eyes of 604 patients were included in the studies. All patients underwent non-contrast CT, primarily in axial plan with 0.5 to 2 mm sections in bone and soft tissue windows. Images were reconstructed in sagittal and coronal views and were reported by 3 masked observers for providing the diagnosis of open or closed globe injuries. Results were compared with the surgical and the clinical findings, and the consensus was taken by taking the majority opinion. All patients with suspected foreign body ocular injury and who gave the informed consent were included in the study, and the patients with previous history of trauma were excluded. Mean age of the patients was found to be 21 plus minus 2 years, with males forming majority of those, 99%. 94.6% of the patients had unilateral injury, and bilateral injury was found in 4.4%, that is 332 of 604 patients. Here in the image, upper image, it shows a fundus photograph showing the exit wound from the posterior aspect of the globe, and image below is a closed globe injury with superficial foreign body impacted in some subconjunctival space. Discussions. So this table represents the significance of foreign body location on CT scan with respect to clinical diagnosis of open globe injuries. As you can see, intraconal foreign body, intraconal orbital foreign body was found into 176 cases, of which 157 patients had open globe injuries. While as intraocular foreign body, that's the most specific finding, it had 180, 178 were found to be open globe injuries. Foreign body that were closely related to the optic nerve in the intraorbital space were found in 28 patients, 25 of which were found to be open globe injuries. These are the CT images showing, first image showing the foreign body in the anterior chamber here with the streak artifact, and the same patient in axial scan in bone window, showing the foreign body with streak artifacts in the anterior chamber. Top right corner is the axial CT orbit showing the foreign body in brain parenchyma, most likely traveled there through the optic foramen because we cannot find any fracture. And this image shows here foreign body in the intravitreal space with vitreous hemorrhage, and most likely a traumatic cataract as it shows deformed contour of the lens. This is a soft tissue window of the same patient showing foreign body in the intraconal space and foreign body in intravitreal with vitreous hemorrhage. This is the third image showing the axial CT orbit scan showing foreign body in ocular wall. This table represents the significance of CT scan findings with respect to the clinical diagnosis of the open globe injury. Contour deformity was picked up in 196 scans, of which 167 scans were found to be open globe injuries. The specificity and the sensitivity of the contour deformity increased with the severity of the deformity, from mild to severe contour deformity. Contour discontinuity is also the most specific finding of the open globe injury, and also the intraocular aeroceles. This table represents the detection rate and pickup rate and the significance of CT scan findings with respect to the clinical diagnosis of open globe injuries. Traumatic cataract with the actual number of 148, 50 were detected by the CT scan, and 49 of those were found to be open globe injuries. While as vitreous hemorrhage was found in 465 patients in actually clinically, but CT scan picked it in 327 patients, and 308 of those were found to be in open globe injuries. Perforation, detection of the perforating type of injury was picked up by CT scan in 122 patients, of which 119 were found to be perforating injuries and 3 were found to be open globe injuries. These are the few CT scan images showing posteriorly dislocated cataractus lens in the first image. There is an axial CT scan depicting the RD with subretinal fluid collection. There is a sagittal CT of the orbit showing double perforation, one in superior to the optic nerve and one below. And this is the axial scan showing the collection of subretinal fluid with vitreous hemorrhage, and third image showing the intraocular aeroceles. So results of the surgical exploration and the CT interpretation were compared. Of 407 CT diagnosis of open globe, 391 were true positives, and of 229 CT diagnosis of closed globe injuries, 185 were true negatives. Sorry. So overall, the sensitivity of original CT interpretation in the diagnosis of open globe injury was 89.89%. Specificity was found to be 22.04%. Positive predictive value was found to be 96.07%. Negative predictive value 80.79%, with an accuracy of 90.57%. When we compare to previous such studies by Ari et al. In 2007, the mechanism of injury was same as the projectile injury, and the sensitivity and the specificity were lower than over study. It may be due to the limitation of the small sample size and the retrospective nature of the study. While over study is a prospective study, and there is a specific.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Faisal, but may I request you to please sum it up in next 1 minute?
Yes, sir. Conclusions: most common statistically significant CT findings suggest of open globe injury were found to be vitreous hemorrhage, intraocular aerosols, intraocular foreign body contour deformity, and intraconal and intraorbital foreign body. Perforating injury was accurately diagnosed in 119 eyes of 122 CT interpretations. Intraconal foreign body correlated significantly to the open globe injuries in the current study. Thank you.
Hello.
Dr.
Yes.
Das, do we have questions? Dr.
Yeah.
Milind Nayak sir is here.
Yes, one question to
Yes,
Faisal, please.
Yes, sir.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes, sir. Of course, sir.
Yeah. So, Dr. Faisal, very nice, well-established study, and we all have known that for this gun pellet injury, probably CT scan is the choice of investigation.
Yes,
so,
sir.
only thing that I wanted to ask you that what was the newness in your study that you wanted to do this study? Everything,
newness,
whatever you said, was
sir,
well-established and documented one, and that should
yes,
be
sir.
the only investigation tool of choice. So, what is
New
the newness
one,
in your study?
sir. New one was to further classify the open globe injuries, because we know we can detect the open globe injuries on CT scan, but we further classified those type of open globe, like perforating injuries was detected, double perforation was detected, optic nerve damage was detected. These were the significant new changes, new findings in these type of injuries, sir.
Okay, so you have not gone for the clinical follow-up of all these cases. So you have restricted yourself to the diagnostic modalities.
No, sir. We are following the clinical cases. So I think data is with the statistician. So we are correlating these findings with the clinical outcomes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Dr. Milind, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah, Faisal, nice study.
You,
Did
sir.
you have any cases where you had a double perf and the globe appeared intact on the basis of your contour assessment?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Many such cases there were. For we could not detect a double perforation in such cases, because these are high speed projectiles. So usually when they go, so ocular contour is maintained. We could not detect such. In many cases, we could not detect a double perforation on CT scan, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Dr. Faisal, it was a very nice study, I must say. I just want to know any other imaging which will help us, because CT scan, we all know, leads to a lot of artifacts. You know, you see when there is a pellet injury, and sometimes the number of pellets, how many are there. So any other imaging modality in these patients which
Yes.
will help us in
Yes.
localizing and knowing the number of pellets in the eye or in the orbit?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we started with the X-ray imaging of the orbit. If we detected foreign body on that, then only we could go. Then only we did go for the CT scan for proper localizations.
So X-ray is very important, you know, imaging modality in these patients, and it adds on to the whatever we see on CT.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So that is one thing we cannot ignore.
Yes, ma'am.
So it was a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I wish she was a ratified member.
Hi.
Do we have any more questions for Dr. Faisal? Nice presentation, Dr. Faisal. Great collection of pictures.
Thank you, ma'am.
But unfortunately, non-ratified member, so can't score. Moving on to the next presentation.
Ma'am, I'm a permanent member.
It's showing that you're a non-ratified member.
But I have a permanent membership number. I have depicted in the first slide only.
Are you ratified member?
Okay, we'll look into the matter.
Faisal, it takes, I think, 1 year to get
Yeah,
ratified.
I think so.
So
I
if you
think
have
so.
applied it now, it will happen.
Yeah, it will happen. Thank you, ma'am.
Do we have Dr. Hitesh Sunil Kumar Patel?
Well, I
Next
don't see
presenter,
him there. Let's go with the next speaker, Dr. Shruti.
Dr. Akanksha Gupta. Do we have her
Dr. Akanksha is
ready
also
with the
not there, but
presentation?
Dr. Divya Mutwani is there with us. She was having some technical trouble, so she is back. So if you allow, with your permission, we
Yes,
can go.
we have some time left, so I think we can take her presentation. Dr.
Divya, please
Divya, are you
unmute.
ready with your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
She's also a non-ratified member. All right, let's go ahead with the presentation.
Very good morning to all of you. I'll be presenting a case on traumatic myopia. So a 17-year-old boy had presented to our OPD department with a complaint of pain in the left eye since morning, with 4 episodes of vomiting followed by a blunt trauma to the left eye by a stone while playing with firecrackers. The pain was constant and moderate in intensity. There was a history of redness of the eye post-trauma, but there was no history of any foreign body entering the eye. There was no history of diminution of vision, no history of spectacles, no history of watering from the eye, and neither there was any history of any similar episode in the past. Coming to the examination on the first day, so on ocular examination, we saw that the findings in the right eye were completely normal with a vision of 6.6, and the pupillary reaction was also normal. But while the left eye, the primary vision was 6.9, and on pinhole, it improved to 6.6. The lids had mild lower eyelid edema with abrasion present on it, and on the conjunctiva had circumcorneal congestion. The cornea had a linear corneal abrasion of 2 mm inside, and the limbus inside the limbus from 4 to 6 to o'clock position. The anterior chamber showed a 2 mm hyphema. The iris was normal in pattern. The pupil was a central circular reacting to light. The lens was clear, and the fundus showed a shiny reflex inferior to the macula, but rest was completely within normal limit. This is the image of the patient. We can see that there was a circumcorneal. In the first image, we can see that there's congestion and there's an abrasion present on the lower lid, which is circular. And in the other image, it is of the anterior segment. We can see that there's hyphema present around 2 mm. On second day, on examining the patient, okay, so we had started the patient on Moxie and Nepafenac and given a firm iPad. On the second day, when we examined the patient, the right eye was normal as the first day, but the other eye, the left eye, the vision had dropped to 624. And it was improving till 6.6 with best corrected visual acuity of by minus 1.5 dye spherical. Over the lids, we saw that there was mild lower lid edema with the abrasion, same as the previous day. The conjunctiva had circumcorneal congestion. The cornea had a healed epithelial defect. In the anterior chamber, we saw that the hyphema had reduced to 1 mm, but it was slightly shallow. The AC depth was slightly shallow in the right side than the normal eye. The iris was normal pattern, pupil was central circular reacting to light, the lens was clear, and in the fundus, we saw a subnormal wrinkling reflect again inferior to the macula, but there was nothing significant. On the third day, we saw that the visual acuity reduced further to 660, which had improved again with 266 with a spherical correction of -6 dye spherical. On slit lamp examination, a very shallow AC was seen with a grade 4 flare and a thickened lens. The IOP was unrecordably low. The treatment was reversed with omission of acetazolamide as he was admitted, and topical prednisolone was started along with hometropine. Further on hello. So
please go ahead, Dr. Divya. You have 30 seconds left.
Okay, sir. Further on day 6, we saw that the visual acuity was 6.6 with correction, and the AC and the lens was becoming better, and the fundus was normal. We had done the axial length and the AC depth with the A scan on all the days. So it was seen that the lens thickness in the left eye had increased significantly to 3.6 mm, and it had reduced later on the day 6 again back to 3.9. And on the B scan, we can see the same thing, that is there is an increase in the lens thickness. So this is a case that demonstrates a transient traumatic myopia due to ciliary body effusion, as as the clinical findings had suggest. So the B scan, when we did the B scan, it showed that the intraocular dimensions, which allows a further evaluation of this case, there was no lens opacity observed, but the lens thickness was increased, and transient traumatic myopia after blunt trauma was observed in this case. So the axial length and the vitreous cavity also remain unchanged in size, but it was followed by the movement of anterior lens surface, which resulted in the shallowing of the anterior chamber. So the myopia could have been resulted from these following mechanisms, that is detachment of ciliary size due to due to the zonule case, a ciliary spasm as well as ciliary body edema may have caused a transient myopic shift. We could not perform the UBM to show the evidence of ciliary body edema, but the AC depth, that is the axial length and the lens thickness on the B scan, was well seen. And transient hypotony to support the compromise of the function of the ciliary body was also seen. So we revised our treatment with cycloplegics and steroids, and the patient had improved to 6.6 immediately 3 days after treatment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Divya. I would request our judges, if they have any questions, please go ahead.
Very nice case presentation, Divya. Something which we see is with drug-induced myopia also. But I think it would be nice when we present such a case to have UBM, because that's the main mechanism of myopia out here.
Yes,
so at day 6, when you said his thickness had come back to normal, what was the refractive error at that point in time?
Ma'am, he had come back to 6.6. His vision was 6.6.
Emetropia.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was nice. Did you give anything in between besides, I think, steroids you gave and antibiotics, right?
Yes, ma'am. We had given, we had started him with acetazolamide also, but then we saw that steroids and cycloplegics had a better effect, so then we didn't continue.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do we have any other question? Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Dr. Das, Dr. Neelam.
No, good
ma'am.
presentation, Divya. So
Thank
we'll
you,
go
ma'am.
ahead for next presentation.
Do we have any other presenter who wants to present now? Dr. Madhvi, then Dr. Rahul Kumar Bafna, Dr. Hitesh Patel, Dr. Akanksha Gupta. Do we have these presenters ready?
Unfortunately, the presenters are not here, so we have to skip them. And I guess everyone here presented their talk, so I would request Dr. Shruti to please conclude the entire session.
So we just have 3 presenters who will be competing for the session. Dr. Tanmay, Dr. Phillips, and Dr. Ankita Mahapatra, right?
Yes.
All right.
Ma'am, I'm a registered AIOS member.
Sorry, is it Dr. Who's
Yes,
speaking?
ma'am.
Dr.
No,
Divya.
Dr. Divya, when did you register? Is it just last year? Then you're not a ratified member. Did you register?
Yes. I had registered last year itself.
Yes, so it takes about a year, like 1 more year, and then you're ratified.
Okay, thank you so much.
I thank all the judges, Dr. Neelam, Dr. Sheetal, Dr. Milan, Dr. Manoranjan Das. It was a wonderful session, and
Thank you.
thank you for your valuable time. So we compile all the marks and send it to the number mentioned.
Sure.
Within 10 minutes. Do we wind up here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Shruti, and thank you so much to all the judges. Thank you to all the speakers for keeping it in time, so we could hand it over the conference to the next session on time. A big thank you to all the judges, chairperson, and also to
So
our speakers. Thank you
which,
so much.
can we have a group photo?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Please turn on your videos, everybody, and unmute yourself. We can have a group picture.
Fortunately, we have good amount of time because few of the speakers are not present here, so we can definitely have this moment here to click a photo.
Dr. Sheetal, are you taking a screenshot?
No, I am not. Do you want me to?
No, photo.
Okay, let me take over. Rest of the speakers, can you turn on your video? Dr. Jyoti, Dr. Prabhu, Dr. Aparna. All right, smile everybody. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Thank you for your valuable time.
Thank you so much,
everyone.
everyone.